Okay, so I don't follow Valorant that closely. It's not really my kind of game specifically. And so it's just not on my mind very often, except when Riot puts out like a big story cinematic for the thing. I'll usually sort of get interested and take a look. But yeah, there's just not enough narrative sort of ongoing in Valorant in a way that's accessible to me as someone who doesn't play the game. So I haven't been paying close attention. I think there's been a few new agents out, but the latest agent, Clove, is apparently non-binary, which that's interesting because sure as hell ain't a lot of non-binary characters in Riot games. So that's worth taking a look at, seeing how they executed on that. So yeah, let's just look at what we've got here. Actually, hang on, we got the splash art there. So non-binary seems to be relatively femme in presentation. Lots of purple. Like, is that specifically sort of theming it after the purple stripe in the non-binary flag, or is it? So we got moths or butterflies here, which, like, those are a common sign of transition. I wonder if that's going to be relevant, because they do seem to be wearing like a whole bunch of like moth or butterfly. I think it's a moth. Stuff on them. Which presumably that has something to do with their powers. And then besides that, it's the usual Valorant thing, which is every character is more or less the same size because they have to have the same hitbox and sort of more or less the same body plan, and their clothes are relatively restrained. That's one of the sort of game design, character design interactions that's always present in Valorant. Is like they really can't go too far with it. Like they can't push too far into outrageous directions with the size and shape and the body design of characters. So they have to do what they can with costume design, but without like altering the perceived hitbox of the characters, which is like, it's one of the things that makes me a little skeptical that this game can ever really be that interesting on the character design front, because like it has these very hard, because like Counter-Strike is like you play X number of dudes running around in like military fatigues or like pop culture terrorism cosplay. That's sort of been enough for that. And like same thing with games like Call of Duty, right? Like, which do try to sell a lot of cosmetics. I can't see the appeal of any of them because they're just like, here's fatigues with tactical gear straps on things. Whoa, and here's another one which is fatigues with tactical straps and whoa, different straps though. It's like this strap, it's got gold. There's a skull on one of the patches on the wow. So it's outside of my sphere of interest. I'm sure for people who are into that kind of thing, it's much more exciting than that. But for me, as someone who's not, I have trouble with it. It's also one of the things I sort of have never been able to gel with in Valorant. Is like Valorant tries to sort of mix and match, like split the difference between Overwatch and Counter-Strike, right? With like this very, very Overwatchy, very League of Legends-y, like, well, I shouldn't say either of those things, modern sort of AAA cooperative multiplayer game thing, which is a style that Riot themselves largely defined for like the 2010s up into the 2020s. Like very much that one art style, but applied to here's a bunch of characters doing modern military shooter shit with like rifles and guns and stuff. And they sort of tried to split the difference between like cartoon wildness and crazy shit happening and then characters wearing tactical straps on their vests and shit. Which is one of the things, it's one of the interesting aesthetic experiments that Valorant is doing. I don't know that I feel like they've really been able to nail the... Like, it feels sometimes to me more like both styles are being inhibited by each other rather than strengthening or adding on to each other in terms of what the character design of the game is able to achieve. But then again, haven't been watching Valorant, following Valorant for a while, so I couldn't say it. Maybe I should actually watch the trailer for this goddamn agent before I go off on a thing.
All right.
Oh, hang on. Oh yeah, we're definitely doing moths and butterflies for their power set, and some kind of split identity thing? Able to generate a shadow clone of themselves, something along those lines? Is that what we're signaling here? As usual, the illustration is way more compelling than the character model, because the character model, again, has to conform even harder to the like generalized aesthetic of Valorant to the game. But the character model, like the character illustrations, usually sort of get to push a little bit harder on the personality of the characters. I like the sharpness of Clove here.
All right, muckers. Off we go.
Oh, they're Scottish. Okay. They're non-binary and Scottish. That is a rare combination indeed.
Off we go.
Some kind of grenade power, I guess. Oh, hey, Zeri.
One downside to being immortal. I can't play dead.
Okay, so they have some kind of revival power. It really is a pity. It's the thing of, like, when you're watching gameplay footage of the characters, they can't really express their personality through animation either, because their animations, their movements, their hitboxes have to be consistent from character to character, so everyone kind of has to move in the same very robotic, like, it's such a pity. That's the thing, is, like, that's where Valorant loses out on what Overwatch can do, right? Like that's where Valorant loses out on what Overwatch was able to do, is because Overwatch commits fully to having big silly cartoon characters, like with all kinds of shapes and sizes. You can have your Roadhog and your Torval in the same game, and they can animate wildly differently. Like, that's where Overwatch gets such an edge, and Valorant really loses out, because it's the thing of, like, why have these super bright color, like very, in some ways, cartoony character designs, like really distinct Saturday morning cartoon character-esque things going on, and then you have to animate them like sort of crab walking forward with holding a gun in front of them with their head at the exact same height all the time when they're not crouched, because the hitbox for the headshot has to be consistent. It's like, it's like, oh, I don't. It really is one of my big criticisms of Valorant. That's not a thing to say, like, oh, the game is bad or whatever, or the game looks bad or the aesthetic is bad, but it's one of my criticisms. It's one of the weak points of Valorant, is that I just don't think the game itself gets the benefit of having these character designs running around in-game. I just don't think it doesn't strengthen one another. The cartoony art style reveals the weakness of that kind of animation design, of that kind of, like, and like the animation design of a game like that really sort of makes these characters look clunky and chunky and very uncanny and kind of waxy in the way that they're put together, and it's a pity. On the upside, I do think like it definitely does bring it gets the benefit of being able to tell stories about characters, right? Which is something that Counter-Strike, I think Counter-Strike has tried at various points to do that, but Counter-Strike can't. Because, like, what fucking care? It's counter-terrorist number 5. Yeah, sure. What a compelling narrative we shall have about that man. I'm sorry, that just isn't happening. So what Valorant definitely has is, like, it's been able to create a fandom of people who engage with the characters as people, right? Which is the strength that it did get from Overwatch. Not quite to the extent, like, Overwatch owned the internet, like, for years. It really, I mean, thinking about Overwatch does make me mad again that Bobby Kotick, and it was Bobby Kotick who was largely responsible, just jerked off all over that shit with esports money. I was like, it's an esports title now, we're gonna get so many investors. It just, and like, sprayed the Overwatch League out into the world, like, fucking asked for, what was it, $20 million or whatever the fuck it was for a franchise slot in their big new Overwatch Sports League, which is gonna be localized with local stadiums, like, without... There was no groundwork. They just sort of exploded. We're just going to throw a lot of money at this and make it happen somehow without doing the groundwork of, like, the reason football stadiums can do that, the reason football teams can do that is because they have, like, 400 years of history in, like, a local area of England of being this area's local football team that everyone in the town, like, everyone, their grandmother and their grandfather and their grandfather's grandfather remembers going to those football games and cares about that team and cares about this thing as a part of local history. And here comes fucking Blizzard Entertainment is like, you are now, everyone in this town are now fans of the Overwatch San Francisco Sunbears, or whatever the fuck we called the team, and the local affiliation. Just, oh my fucking god. And Overwatch died. Like, it killed the game. Not only that Blizzard had to balance the entire game from then on around competitive play, which killed its casual scene completely, in the same way that it's like League of Legends did the same thing. League of Legends is so balanced around its competitive scene that it really has been a huge killer of the casual fun that game was once able to deliver. It's been a huge thing that's been driving casuals away from it, and certainly it's a big part of the reason why I stopped playing. But man, Overwatch just makes me so sad. It's just, I'm sorry. This is ostensibly a reaction video to something that's happening in Valorant, but I really can't disentangle Valorant from Overwatch. Like, I really do feel that Valorant, its impetus was in large part an attempt to take like the strengths of a more tactical shooter and combine them with the narrative and like the aesthetic strength of an Overwatch. Like, I really do think that is part of the pitch, like the thing that Riot was trying to do was that. So I can't really talk about Valorant without talking about Overwatch. Especially because, like I said, Valorant cannot do the same thing in-game that Overwatch could in terms of making the characters personable. They all just look terrible in motion. I'm sorry, they just do. Again, doesn't really matter that much because, like, who's playing the video game for the animation of the character? You want to shoot them. You don't want to see them emote in particularly personable ways, but still. Anyway.
Dropped in a smoke. Not even sweating. Here, catch! I love this part.
Okay, so there's some sort of support-ish character. Well, everyone is like a... Is there, like, how distinct are the roles in Valorant? I don't actually know how distinct the roles in Valorant are. Like, because, like, I know, like, some of the characters can heal, and some of them can do, like, recon, and some of them are better at, like, dealing direct damage. But, like, is this, like, distinctly, like, specifically, like, this is a support character, or this is, like, a utility thing? Heck if I know. Okay, so we didn't get a whole lot. I mean, definitely we get the butterfly moth thing that they've got going on. Is it a thing of, like, you can shoot their ghost to prevent them from reviving? I wonder. Also, when they use that power... They got a little something going on with their hair that turns pink, and then they have ears? Or something? Is that to denote a cooldown, or does that give them like a grace period of invulnerability before they fully respawn? Who knows? I don't really know about the game mechanics. But here's perhaps the better actual trailer for the character rather than the gameplay. This presumably will be fully animated. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, isn't that the painter person? You're toast. Okay, so they run forward, they get shot. And it's a music video. Well, okay, there's the copyright claim. Okay, so they definitely grow horns or ears or something. Oh, cool little design detail. The shoelace, I keep saying, looks like a butterfly. And they seem to have a lesbian pride flag on their... Non-binary lesbian, that would be cool. But I know, like, this is clearly patterned after pride flags with the stripes running across their body like that. Okay, so the song mentions butterflies, so it's probably butterflies. I feel like they look more like moths. So there is a certain childishness to their design, at least here. Which, like, yeah, that sort of also comes across, like, with the many butterfly clasps and, like, the little backpack. I know it's a tactical backpack full of bullets or whatever. but like with the short shorts and like the leggings, there is a certain childishness to their character, like a child-codedness to the way that they're put together, which I wonder if that sort of reflects on their character. That their character has a particularly naive or is particularly like young among the Valorant agents, which like raises some problematic questions about, hey, how close to child soldier are we dealing with here when it comes to the Valorant initiative? Because like some of them are pretty young, those kids. A little bit of censorship also is that they get shot, but it's no blood, no viscera, no nothing. It's bullet through. But then, don't worry, no exit wound. No anything. Don't worry about it. They get shot with guns, but it's not real violence. Don't worry about it. God forbid you show a nipple, though. Like, you can show people getting shot with guns so long as there's no blood, but, oh, God forbid. Where were we? Here. Okay, so we're doing a... Okay. They went to... This is one of the worlds that Aqua goes to in Kingdom Hearts 3. Like the little prequel chapter to Kingdom Hearts 3, where Aqua's going... Like, I'm pretty sure that's one of those. And that's... So they're going to go up there and eat sea salt ice cream is what's going to happen. Ooh, I like that. So they have some sort of access to... Oh, okay. Interesting. I thought they were doing like a big squash and stretch on that landing, but no, the model is actually staying entirely intact. Interesting. Okay, shadow selves. What do we have there? Then we have this character who seems decidedly less happy to be where they are. Is that like them before they transition? Is the idea? Oh, so they're leaving like echoes of themselves behind. Oh, that's Chamber, right? That's the French man. So they have some sort of connection with him. And then... Oh, it's the paint boy. It's the paint guy. It's their crew reaching out to them. I guess calling them back to... And they did a little thing with their hands, making a butterfly thing. Might want to get back into cover, though. Okay. I wish we got any kind of anything. like yeah, okay. This was an interesting little tone poem. Like, where this character seems to have a very casual relationship with death. Where she's like, oh yeah, we just go to the Shadow Realm and, like, fly around a bit. And interact with the echoes of ourselves. Like, are these all their past deaths, then? Like, sort of an echo sort of thing where these are, like, remnants of past lives where they died? Past, like, revivals that they've had to undergo? I guess they have some sort of connection with Paint Boy, which is cool. Is Paint Boy a boy? I feel like I would have heard if he was non-binary or something. Okay. More of a tone poem than any actual information about the character. That thing with the butterfly things on the shoulder, that's still true, like it just became more obvious. And they also have, oh, so that's what the choker is doing, right? So we saw the imagery of the like the sound line, the waveform in here. And I guess that's the thing that they've got going on on their fingers. Is like they have that waveform tattooed there. And then that sort of provides the zigzag imagery for the choker as well, which, okay. Curious. I'm wondering how much to read into their character design. For example, the fact that they wear so many hair clips is a thing of like that could be a thing of like trying to maintain control or hold on to themselves, or it could be a thing of trying to fit themselves into some kind of a mold, or a thing about like they're untidy and unorganized. Like what do they look like with their hair down? Like have they cut it themselves and it looks terrible, and is that why it's held up with so many clips? I'm wondering whether to read that into the character design, because like Riot, generally speaking, when Riot is on, like when Riot's artists are like sort of allowed to make character designs without too much interference, which I think has been the case with Valorant, is like they've been fairly free to, at least, but again, I don't follow the game nearly as closely as I do League of Legends, but I haven't heard as much sort of grapevine about interference as there definitely is with League of Legends champions. Makes me wonder, because that sort of makes me wonder how much to read into character design details on this character. Because like for all I know, this could also just be responding to like fashion trends, right? Like that's the thing of like, when there is corporate interference, it'll usually be about, like, we know from our data from our players that our players engage with this thing and that thing and that thing, and, like, these properties and these franchises and these artistic styles and these fashion movements make something that has some of that in them, and that can be where those mandates come down from, of, like you, this sort of slightly juvenile aesthetic that they've got going on. That could be a thing. Like, is there a fashion movement that's sort of playing into these particular aesthetics? I don't know. I was kind of hoping that this would be like a, like the trailer for Neon, where we actually got some personality and like some interaction with the characters. Not so much, I guess. Because like I'm trying to sort of piece together where the butterfly thing comes in then, because like we have this thing of two worlds, right? Like that's the title of the song, where we have the real world and then we have this shadow realm that they have access to, where they can just kind of go when they get killed, and hang out, and it's not really a big deal. Hey, and then we have this golden butterfly thing, which shares a color with the golden line down here. Which, like, that gold is in stark contrast to, like, the blue and the purple and, like, the teal and the pink. That sort of forms their color scheme, but it's the same as the color in their eyes. So is the butterfly, like, a representation of some kind of inner fire, inner light? Because the butterfly seems to be guiding them through the mirror dimension along with the line. And that's the thing that keeps guiding them back to life, right? From their death realm. Back out into the world. So are we supposed to understand that butterfly as something which is apart from them? Some kind of power? I'm sure there's a lore document somewhere. Valorant doesn't have a lot of lore, but it does have a little. Actually, let me see if I can find that. Clove, Valorant, Wiki, let's see. Scottish troublemaker Clove makes mischief for enemies both in the heat of combat and the cold of death. Oh, the young immortal keeps foes guessing, even from beyond the grave. Their return to the living only ever a moment away. So they are immortal is basically their power. Let's see. The young Scottish Valorant agent Clove possesses power unprecedented even among their fellow Radiants, the power over the essence of life and immortality. Each death and step brings them to a whole new world, a junction between the realms of the living and the dead, one that Clove will journey through on their way to return to life and resurrect themselves. But such abilities are unlikely to be a blessing forever, and Clove themselves finds that they can never spend too long in the junction beyond life, as the longer they spend there, the harder it is to return. Okay, so it's like a thing of, they are immortal, but maybe only for so long, right? Like maybe once they've taken one too many bullets. Which is like, I thought that was Phoenix's power though. That, like, Phoenix had this whole resurrection thing of not dying when they get shot. Is that not what their power is? Yeah, like they also have a resurrection power, so maybe that's not so unmatched among their. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, sure. Doesn't matter. Let's see. Timeline of events. Clove encounters Omen. Handed over to Deadlock. Who the hell is Deadlock? God, I haven't followed this in ages. Ooh, Deadlock are hot. Sentinel. Oh, that's the roles that they have. Aha! So they have a role. Let me see. A controller. Ah, okay, I see. Sorry, I'm just reading the wiki right now. Clove is fearless as they do not see death as a scary thing. In fact, they see it as beautiful. They are described as a Scottish troublemaker, which can be told by the part of their bold personalities making trouble. That's not very well written on the wiki there. Getting into the fight without holding back. Let's see. They accessorize themselves with jewelry such as the choker, a matching bracelet, butterfly-esque earrings, and 9 rings, 2 of which are each a half of the butterfly. Yes. So what I'm confused about with the butterfly is that butterflies typically are these signifiers of of rebirth, right? That you enter a transitional phase and then you come out as something else on the other side, right? Like the caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly cycle thing of like, but it's also a unidirectional thing, right? It's a thing of like you enter you are one thing, then you enter a cocoon and you get liquefied, and then you get your genes get altered and you get turned into something else, and then you emerge as a butterfly. But then the butterfly is like the final form, right? Like that's the end point for that particular metaphor of transformation. So it's a little odd to have the butterfly as a signifier for this kind of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, just get shot 500 times and go back here, and then because like it sort of doesn't 100% to make sense to me that they get shot, they die, because that would be the idea would be they get shot, and then their time in the death realm would be their time in the chrysalis, and then when they are ready to emerge as a changed self, that's when they emerge as a butterfly. But then they get shot again, and then they're back here. Not 100% sure how to take that. Like, I'm not 100% sure where the butterfly imagery really works with the power set that they have. Because, like, it's visually compelling. Like, I really like the way that those details are rendered on them. Like it's a fun way to accessorize. Like we said, like characters in Valorant kind of have to all look exactly the fucking same, except for the costume. So that's a fun costuming thing. But I'm not 100% sure that thematically I quite understand how it's supposed to work. Yeah. Cool character. Like it's just generally nice when there's more non-binary characters in media. Like, and the main thing I'd like is that we'd have non-binary characters, like, because like some non-binary people present androgynous, some present masculine, some present feminine, some present like indescribable. And there is like a thing of like, cool, we have a non-binary character. I would like some non-binary characters that like fuck around with gender a lot more. This is not really a thing for me to determine, not being non-binary myself. But it does feel like Clove does like err on the side of, if we are publishing Valorant in a homophobic territory, we can just call them a girl, right? Like it feels like a character design that's designed such that if like for Valorant in Russia, they can just say, oh no, that's a girl, totally, she, her, all the way. Which, you know, it's one of those things that's difficult to deal with, like international publishing and the laws around that shit around the world. But that would be sort of, that's the thing I'm kind of hoping to see over the next 10, 15 years or so as the games industry hopefully finds their fucking testicles about this, is like a broader range of what non-binary can mean for character design than just, you know, androgynous person or like femme-coded person. Like, because I'm trying to think how many other non-binary characters I really know, like that are like explicitly, specifically confirmed to be non-binary and that aren't just like gender non-conforming in some way that like makes it very easy to interpret them as non-binary, but like where it's not an explicit part of like the text of the character. And again, none of this is a criticism of Clove as a character design. It's a broad structural criticism of like the state of media as a whole. And it's one of those things that's like unhappy about like trying to do underrepresented types of characters, like non-binary characters, for example, is that like you sort of each character gets saddled with the responsibility for being representation for the whole of the subgroup, which is impossible because non-binary people are all over the fucking map, right? Like in the same way that any gender group is. And no one character can actually represent them fully. That's simply not a thing which is possible. And it's not a standard. It's not fair to hold Clove to like the responsibility of being representation for all non-binary people. It's just it's a broader, more structural thing of like I really do wish that like a character being non-binary wasn't a big deal, right? That it wasn't a rare thing. That it was like, oh yeah, there's one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another, and they all had like different versions, like so that you had that broad range of archetype and representation that exists in reality. Because like I know some non-binary people like who if you didn't know, right, you would easily mistake them for men because they have beards, right? And like non-binary people who for all intents and purposes present fully femme, and you might think that they're women, right? Like at first glance, until you ask and you get like, oh yeah, they, them, or she, they, or they, he, or whatever. And like it is a thing of like, it's that difficult thing of like, and that's a character design problem that I've been thinking about a lot in general, is that thing of like, when it comes to how do you visually make a character non-binary, right? Like how do you visually do storytelling that says where the character design communicates this character is non-binary? Because like there's a way to say this character is male when it comes to character design. There's a way to say this character is female when it comes to character design. Oh boy, we have 100 million ways to do both of those things. How do we say this character is non-binary? How do we say this character is trans in general without like resorting to stereotypes that have historically been used to like harm and mock and ridicule? The answer to that is let trans and non-binary people fucking character design. Like give that work to trans and non-binary people. Say, hey, make something that like that represents you, right, from your own perspective, and then you will get like, that's when those tropes, those signs, those signifiers, those traditions of design will develop, is once we let those people tell their own fucking stories. But until then, right, like we sort of, when you're reading character design, when you're doing character design, you have to reckon with the fact that like, unlike something like, hey, do you want to make a character who is strong but stupid? Is like, oh, we have like 500 different ways to do that exact kind of character design, right? That's an archetype everyone knows. Whereas, like, marginalized people, because they aren't in media as much, you don't have those same traditions to draw upon. Like, you don't have that same shared language of how a character design works to draw on, to make the characters with. And that's when you start dipping into stereotypes, right? And that's when you kind of have to reckon really fucking carefully with which stereotypes you have to pull from. And that's a difficult thing. Like, I don't, and again, the only answer I can ever think of to that is like, just let fucking non-binary people and trans people make character. And I don't know who designed Clove. Like, I don't know who designed Clove. I don't know if that work was given to trans and non-binary workers at Riot. I know Riot has quite a few like trans and non-binary artists working there. So, you know, hopefully, and Riot's internal sort of diversity teams are generally pretty good about this kind of thing, of even like, of at the very least, like having sensitivity readers and like consultants come in from outside and sort of assess whether they're doing a decent job. So I wonder about that. Anyway, that was a whole bunch of very disconnected thoughts about, that's sort of 30% about a Valorant agent, and then the rest of it was about Overwatch and other things. Cool character design. Like, I do like, I should actually comment on that as well. I was about to end the video, and then I had another thought, welcome to ADHD hell. That Clove has this sort of whimsical, slightly childish, like sort of bratty, like that, because that seems to be their energy, right? Is that they're kind of a bratty troublemaker kind of character. Like that there is a certain like youthfulness to the way that their design is coded. Is like, from a design diversity perspective, that's good. Like that's something that Valorant could probably use, because Valorant has like a big crop of like cool, darn, dangerous badasses. It doesn't have so many whimsical characters, right? Like it doesn't have that same level of. That's the other thing that Overwatch always had. The strength is that it could have characters like Reaper, I'm dark, I'm scary, I shoot guns, blah, 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 blah. And then also a fucking hamster, right? Like a hamster and a hamster ball. It could also have Junkrat next to that. It could have that broad diversity of like tones with the characters that it had. Where Valorant has been much more limited to like, oh, here's a badass, and here's another badass, and here's another badass, and here's a different flavor of badass, and a different flavor of badass from that, and then like 6 more flavors of badass, but hasn't really had the comedy, like to the same extent that something like Overwatch can, because the tone of the game is that characters are running around shooting each other with real fucking assault rifles. In modern environments, and everybody's body type is about the same. Which sort of like, okay, like you can't really go to the broader places where comedy tends to come from. You can't really be as whimsical. I think Cloves seems to me like an attempt to sort of introduce a little bit more of that playfulness, that whimsy, to the Valorant lineup. And that is like, I like that. That's a cool thing to do. Like, because much though I say like Valorant is stymied and kind of fatally limited by the constrictions of its game design, I like that they're trying. Like, I like to see the artists at Riot pushing to see if, like, okay, what can we do then? Like, within these harsh restrictions, what can we do with character design under these circumstances? That's always interesting. So I like that Clove has, like, a specifically much more sort of lighthearted tone to their costume design. I like that. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it. So, bye.